Hey, Fred Minnick here, and I've got some numbers that may surprise you, or maybe they won't. If you've been following this channel for very long, you know that I have a relationship with Drizly, and they give me data to report on before anybody else. And, you know, I think Drizly is the best way to study what is selling well right now with a particular demographic, and that is those who are buying online. And the reason why is Drizly has 4,000 liquor stores in its network. 4,000 stores. And nobody is giving me data like Drizly is. So this is the best data that I possibly have that is public. Now, you can buy research studies from companies like Nielsen or someone like that has different sets of data. But this is focusing solely on Drizly customers. And again, 4,000 stores. Now, these are all online orders that are connected to local stores that deliver to people in those respective markets. This is an enormous, in my opinion, this is an enormous top 10, two different top 10 lists for bourbon. And what I have for you, the most gifted bourbons on Drizly in December of 2020. And I've got the top 10 best-selling bourbons of all of 2020. Now, think about this for a minute. Drizly is where a lot of people go to buy gifts. It's where they go when they don't really know. Maybe they know a little bit about bourbon. Maybe they don't. I don't know. But I do know that when someone is shopping for liquor and they're not familiar with it, that's where they go to buy gifts for people if they're not walking into a liquor store. Drizly has become the Amazon of liquor sales. It's a fact. And it's being used more and more and more, especially during the pandemic. I think that's why these numbers are so important, is that this is what people were buying and having delivered to them when they couldn't go to the stores themselves. And we're going to start with the top 10 most gifted bourbons on Drizly in December 2020. It's also worth noting that 20% of all the Drizly orders were gift orders in December. So that's, you got to think about this. People are buying for holiday gifts. So this is important data. And these numbers are based on dollars, not necessarily bottles. So this is the amount of money spent. The amount of money spent. That is what, this is the ranking here. At number 10, Buffalo Trace comes in at number 10. That's a pretty strong one. I don't think that's going to be a surprise to many people. Buffalo Trace is a solid bourbon. It's become, you know, more and more popular as the Buffalo Trace Distillery has had more like allocated products on the market. People are like, I can't get Stag, I'll take Buffalo Trace. So that's been kind of the mood there for that brand. At number 9, Jefferson's Ocean. Jefferson's Ocean. Whether you love them or you hate them, they are definitely intriguing. Jefferson's Ocean, I think, definitely is one to keep your eye on for gifts. To me, like, that is one where when someone doesn't know me, when someone is, they ask me 2 questions. Is Pappy worth it? And is Jefferson's Ocean legit? So Jefferson's Ocean has, like, crossed over into that line where it's gotten enough attention. It is definitely on the mainstream scale. At number 8, Willet Pot Still. Willet Pot Still. Now, that one is a bit of a shocker to me, just from a sheer distribution perspective. I did not think it was as widely distributed, but Willet does have a really nice cachet to the brand. It is something that people want on a regular basis, and I cannot be surprised that it makes the list. I'm just surprised that there's enough product out there in the market for people to get it. At number 7, and this is kind of like low for this brand, Maker's Mark. Maker's Mark is typically a very, especially when you find out what's number 1, Maker's Mark is a very like highly like gifted product for people. At number 6, Woodford Reserve Double Oaked. Woodford Reserve Double Oaked. I love this one at number 6. I think Double Oak is a fantastic product. I've got a personal history with that one. When I got my wisdom teeth pulled, that was the only bourbon I could taste for a long time. So I lost my taste for for almost like a month after I got my wisdom teeth pulled. And Woodford Reserve Double Oak was like the only bourbon I could taste once I got off. Like I started recovering from the surgery, and it's kind of amazing to me that that product still has it has a special place in my heart. So glad to see that one on the list. And by the way, there are 2 Woodford products on here, so it's a teaser to what's to come. At number 5, Blanton's. Blanton's was the number 5 most gifted product in December of 2020. So we're looking at the most gifted product in the holiday season. Number 5, Blanton's. And again, this is based on money spent, not necessarily volume. So you have some stores that are charging $200-$300 for Blanton's. You sell a few of those bottles, that could very well be the number one, from a dollar perspective in that perspective market. At number 4, Bullet Bourbon, the Diageo product, coming in strong at number 4. At number 3, Angel's Envy. Angel's Envy was the number 3 most gifted product on Drizly in December of 2020. Again, folks, we're talking about 4,000 stores, and so this is across the entire system of 4,000 stores. Angel's Envy coming in at number 3. That is a strong, strong flex by Angel's Envy. Number 2, Woodford Reserve. Woodford Reserve comes in at number 2 as the most gifted product of December 2020, the holiday season. I totally get that. Woodford Reserve has a particular kind of feel to it. People really enjoy that product. People really get into it. So I get that. All right. Number 1. At number 1, the most gifted, the most sought after, most money spent on product of December 2020, the holiday season. I can't believe this. Basil Hayden. Basil Hayden. And that's how you know that it was the gift season, because Basil Hayden is definitely one that has this appeal as a gift. It's got a beautiful old school label. It is one that it looks like it's hard to get, although it's widely available. It definitely has this kind of feel to it. I can totally see that being a gift purchase from someone who is buying for a bourbon lover. I definitely get that. So, congratulations to Jim Beam, the parent company behind Basil Hayden, for that enormous win there. I gotta say that this is a big win for you all, to be the most gifted product during the holiday season of 2020. I mean, because you have to think about it, people are not going into stores, they're just getting online. So this is all about a digital strategy on y'all's part to make this happen. So kudos to Basil Hayden for making that happen. So I'm going to have a sip of bourbon before I jump into the top 10 selling bourbons of 2020. Whew. I'm sipping on a little Wilderness Trail now, a barrel pick I did. 6-year-old, just absolutely beautiful. Got to tell you, if this was out in the mainstream, it would be number 1 on that list. It's so good. So good. So, the top 10 best-selling bourbons of 2020. At number 10, and it was on the previous list of best-selling of the holiday season of 2020, number 10, Blanton's. Blanton's comes in at number 10. And I want to also continue to point out that these numbers are based on money. and not volume. So if a store is charging $200 for Blanton's and they sell 5 bottles of it, just think of the amount of bottles that they would have to sell something like Maker's Mark to catch up to Blanton's. So that's worth pointing out, that we talk about all the time in the bourbon community. Where's all the Blantons? Well, take a look at the stores who are on Drizly. Again, that's 4,000 stores on Drizly. Think about that for a second. So those folks are moving the needle. At number 9, Knob Creek. Excellent one for Knob Creek. I mean, Knob Creek, I think, should be on the top 10 list for best-selling bourbons of 2020. This is based on data from Drizly, 4,000 stores, online buyers. At number 8, Evan Williams. Evan Williams, which is actually the number 2 selling bourbon in the world. To give you some perspective here, what we're looking at here is we're basically looking at online data. We're looking at online data from the largest online store for selling alcohol. And what we're seeing is that the number 2 selling bourbon overall, which means people going into stores and buying as well as people buying online, the number 2 selling bourbon is actually number 8 on the top 10 list for Drizly of 2020. At number 7, Buffalo Trace. I think that's probably right where Buffalo Trace should be. We're looking at the amount of enthusiasm toward Buffalo Trace and their products. I think that the regular standard Buffalo Trace probably gets overlooked by a lot of folks, but now we see it's really moving the needle, and the fact that it peaked in here at number 7, that's right where it needs to be. Coming in at number 6, the number 1 gifted product of December 2020, Basil Hayden's at number 6 on the best-selling bourbons of 2020. I do think that this is probably about right. It's probably about right. Basil Hayden does have a very large following, especially from those who are into lower proofs. Basil Hayden is an 80-proof product. I can definitely see people getting engaged with it. Again, I think that the label behind it, I think that the way they make that look, I think the packaging on Basil Hayden moves a lot of bottles for people who are buying gifts. So much like Blanton's moves bottles, I think Basil Hayden's has that same effect. Beautiful bottle. At number 5, the number 1 selling bourbon overall is Jim Beam. And it's number 5 on this list. Number 5 based on the money. So this isn't necessarily volume. This isn't cases sold. This is on the dollars. So you're looking at like something that is a $20 price point, $18 to $25 price point. If they, if you look at the amount of bottles that they are selling, if you take a look here, they're pretty competitive. It's going to be this list, although it's based on money, I think if you broke it out on volume in the top 5, I think it'd be very, very close. There might be a little changing here and there, but all of these products, with the exception of coming in at number 4, are very equally priced. At number 4, Woodford Reserve. So the standard Woodford Reserve comes in at number 4. This is the highest priced product in the top 5. So this one, it may not have the same number of bottles sold, but listen, Woodford Reserve puts a lot of marketing behind them. Brown-Forman is the parent company. They're attached to the Kentucky Derby. And so I would imagine if you take a look at their sales time, I bet you that they peak between April and probably June. They really ride the Kentucky Derby. They are the presenting sponsor of the Kentucky Derby, and the Kentucky Derby has a partnership with NBC, so they get a lot of attention when it comes to the Derby. Unfortunately, we didn't have the Derby in 2020, but they still got a lot of the love. At number 3, and this is one of those continuous arguments in American whiskey, is Jack Daniel's bourbon. Well, as it goes from a SKU perspective, as Drizly codes it, Jack Daniel's is indeed a bourbon. By the way, if you look in the free trade agreements, it also says it's a straight bourbon. But that's beside the point. You can even talk to the distillers there. It's a fun conversation to have. And it's not meant to be vitriolic in any way. But the fact is Jack Daniel's chooses to call themselves a Tennessee whiskey from a branding perspective, so they don't have to compete with Kentucky over the term bourbon. So kudos to Jack Daniel's for being in the top 3. Of course, they are the number 1 selling whiskey in the world, not just American whiskey, but whiskey. So they are number 1. And if you think about it, the fact is they're in the top 3, but this, everybody, again, this is Drizly. This is the data from 4,000 stores in the United States of America in the middle of a pandemic. And so when you look at this data, when you take a look at how important this data is, this is showing you what people are buying online when they want it most. At number 2, Maker's Mark. Look, Maker's Mark is actually like the number 3 best-selling bourbon overall. So the fact that they are coming in at number 2 on this list is very strong. It's very strong. And you know they put a lot of money into their marketing. They have campaigns all over the world. They're very clever with their marketing. But they've always been that way, and they got the trademark of the red wax. I think the red wax stands out. And to be honest with you, if I get the gift of Maker's Mark, I'm happy with it. I am a bourbon drinker. I am a bourbon snob, if you will. And I'm happy with the bottle of Maker's Mark, as a gift. If someone gets that for me, I'm ecstatic about it. I think it's a great gift to give somebody. So Maker's Mark comes in at number 2. And the number 1 best-selling bourbon of 2020 comes from the Diageo portfolio, and that is Bulleit Bourbon. Bulleit Bourbon is the number 1 selling bourbon in Drizly for 2020. 4,000 stores, all online buyers, arguably the most important buyers moving forward from a spirits company perspective. Bulleit Bourbon is number 1. Now, why are they number 1? Well, if you take a look at their digital advertising, they're doing more digitally than I think anybody else in the business. So they have put an effort and a focus on a digital spend, and that is why they are number 1. I think you are looking at something here that is a bit of the future. A long time ago, I said Bulleit would probably be a top 5 bourbon, but I think you're starting to see like what the future holds for Bulleit. And that is if the trend continues for online ordering and they continue to focus on that, you're going to see Bulleit like kind of skyrocket, possibly compete for that number 1 position overall. But I don't know. There's still a lot of in-store buying, and that data is not, included in here. But I do think you have to focus on who is spending money digitally. And the fact is that the future spenders are online buying. They're online buying, and according to the data from Drizly, 4,000 stores, they're buying Bulleit Bourbon. So that's going to do it for this. Thank you to Drizly for giving me exclusive access to this data. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you'd like to see more on American whiskey, make sure you click that subscribe button. And, while you're at it, give us a like. We put a lot of effort into this channel, and it's always good to know you like it. And if you have some feedback for me, always hit me up on fredminnick.com. If you have any questions about American whiskey, I've written 7 books. Most of those are about whiskey. So just hit me up anytime. I'd love to answer those questions, except for, how much is this worth? I don't typically answer that question, simply because I can't give you a value on what something's worth, because I don't know if anyone's going to buy it. Plus, it's illegal for you to sell alcohol unless you have a license. But that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Remember, no licking handrails, no licking trash cans, and vodka sucks unless it's being used for hand sanitizer. Cheers, everybody.